MMA UK Abdul Patel. I'm here with the undefeated, undisputed Christian Leroy Duncan, middleweight Cage Warriors champion. How we doing?
Yeah, man, I'm well. I'm healthy, in good spirits. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this next fight.
So that's talk to me about that because that's come around quite quick. Like you fought um, back in November. When was it? Remind me the date.
November 12th.
November the 12th, and now you're booked for New Year's Eve, Europe versus USA Cage Warriors at the O2. Um, Quick turnaround. I know you obviously you got Marion out in the first round. Clearly you're healthy, no damage caused. So was it just a case like straight on to the next one?
Yeah, straight after the fight, I knew I knew I would be able to then jump on again, well, as soon as possible, really.
Mm.
I had in my mind that I wanted to fight 3 times this year,
Yeah.
um, and a fight fell through in July just due to lack of opponents, being able to find an opponent. Marion was injured then, so I couldn't fight him either.
Yeah.
And then it was just nobody was available that time.
Yeah.
So then Marion got pushed till November. So we got 2-3 months left before the end of the year, and they had a big cards going into New Year's with the Europe and USA.
Yeah.
So straight after I spoke to Graham, and he just said like if you're ready, then there's a spot for you.
Mm.
And I said yeah, for sure. I knew I would heal up in a couple of days, nothing major, a couple of bruises and scrapes.
Mm.
So yeah, now we're set for December 31st, New Year's Eve.
All right. And your opponent is probably the toughest competition yet. So you're fighting Jesse Taylor. This is going to be his 50th MMA bout. Black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the 10th planet. Former NCAA Division 1 wrestler. He's fought on UFC, Bellator, ACB, World Series of Fighting. Someone with like quite a renowned game for like wrestling. A big step up in competition. I know when I say big step up in competition, I don't just mean you're 7-0, you're the champion, you've defended your title, and then normally it's the next number one contender, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, there's been issues with finding opponents, and obviously they've sourced this guy who was a former Cage Warriors champion as well. And so this is a big step up in competition. Clearly you're ready for it because obviously you wouldn't have taken the fight. But what's your thoughts on that? Like this person, this opponent, New Year's Eve.
Yeah, Jesse Taylor, as you said, well experienced on the whole MMA circuit from early 2000s, I think, early to late 2000s. But he's been around for a long time, a lot of experience, high level wrestler, high level grappler. But we knew these kind of fights were coming sooner rather than later as well because of my my amateur career. I had a lot of experience there against, again, high level wrestlers, champions, national champions. You had like the Russian fighters, which were at the highest level in their country, which a lot of them, again, BJJ, high level. So I'm used to having these experienced guys in all areas. And where I've been to America, I've been to Thailand, where I've been around the IMAF scene, I've had a lot of these kind of high caliber opponents already and experience against them with training. So the trajectory, we expected it to go this way. From our first fight, it's always gone up and gone up and gone up. I haven't had any kind of like pushover fights. Majority of my opponents, all of them have been in the positive on their record.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a long time coming. We always knew it was gonna come, but I think this is what I need now to push me to the next level. Gives me it opens that door to more possibilities. It's an exciting fight, man, and it opens up a lot of potential doors as well.
And there's like when you hear like black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I know you fought Marion, who's like he's a sambo master. Obviously in that fight we didn't really see much of his like ground game and much of his sort of sambo skill set because of the way the fight went. But when you hear stuff like he's a black belt, and not just a black belt under 10th Planet, world renowned, NCAA Division 1 wrestler, I mean, like, that's like creme de la creme. When you hear these things, does that not like make you think, like, not put you off, but does it make you think like, oh, like, okay, like, I really need to up my game here because this is just another level of skill set that I'm going up against?
For me, it adds to the excitement of the fight and the preparation, especially because I'm always hungry for these fights, and I'm always hungry with my training. And we see ourselves in the picture, there's a long way to go. So there's an inner hunger, inner fire that's always there, burning up. But then when you get opponents of this kind of level, this kind of caliber, it just adds more logs to the fuel, just adds more logs to the fire. You're gonna come up with, because they offer, how can I say, the best way to put it, they offer more challenges than others would. So you have to work these guys out within training, which then going forward, you've added a whole new tool set to your arsenal.
Yeah.
Which then is going to help you later on. But yeah, these ones for me, I'm excited because I know I'm going to be learning so much throughout camp. The fight, I'm going to learn so much within the fight itself. Just everything around it. I know it's going to up my level all around. Just an excitement, man. Just all around.
And I know you've previously said in like interviews before that, like, your first round you like to like feel how the fight's going and see like how the tempo is, and just be creative and see how your sort of skill set's going to fit in the gaps. But do you, because you're quite articulate in the way that when you fight, it seems like it's very calculated to what you're doing against your opponent. Almost like you see their flaws and you know where to capitalize. Obviously, I'm not gonna question you on that because I don't expect you to tell me your game plan going up against someone. But when you're reaching this higher level and you're going up against now like guys that are like even tougher than the previous, does that sort of mindset change where you're like, okay, first round I should be focusing more on that, or is it still like I need to feel it out and see how this goes, and then we've got a game plan for 2, 3, 4, 5 potentially?
It's a good question. I would say that the gaps get smaller. What I mean when I say that is with timing. So if you, for example, you say, and I would take time to feel them out. As my fight IQ develops through fights, that time shortens. So the time it takes to work out what's going on is a lot shorter, and it happens within the fight as well, as much as, because you can only work out so much of a person from their fights. But when you come to fight them again, you're fighting a more developed version of that fighter. So things could have changed. So you have to then think on the fly and work out obviously certain things that obviously they're trying to do, or they might have changed a tactic, and you're like, okay, so that's what they're trying to do there. So you notice it, keep it in your head, and then you'll make the adjustments there. But I would say the gaps definitely get shorter just as you grow and develop. Same with anything. When you start with kickboxing, you might get touched up a lot on the hands, or boxing. But as you get further into it, the longer you do it, your eye gap develops. So you start seeing punches, slipping them quicker. So in that sense, that's what I mean when I say the gap closes. So the ability to read what's going on in the fight also rises.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that makes complete sense. And so, this person you're coming up against, again, like I mentioned before, he's renowned for his wrestling. And yourself, like, you're the highlight specialist, if you like, the poster boy of Cage Warriors, like, everyone knows you for your flashy sort of knockouts and your stoppages. Do you think when it comes to striking, he will offer you something that you've not seen before?
From watching him, and obviously it's not really giving anything away, but yeah, his strikes are dangerous. Anybody's strike, if you get caught with anything in the right way, it can change the course of a fight, as we've seen many times in the past. But with him particular, he's got certain tendencies he likes to do, but is different to what most people do because it leads into something else, which is interesting, which again is something to play around with within training. And I look forward to coming across it in actual reality as well. But yeah, I would say he's a good level all around. You have to be. He's been around for how many years on so many different levels, on high level shows, high level high level fighters that he's fought.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm expecting a decent level of striking, but again, you just take it as it comes when you're in there, you know.
And like with yourself, when it comes to the striking, you know, as we watch you each fight coming through your pro ranks, I can see you're more comfortable in there, you're more fluid, you're more loose, and even the way you were moving in your fight against Milan, not Milan, Marion, excuse me, Marion. You could see that there was a lot more angles you were cutting, and there was a lot more. You was more comfortable in your hands and your feet, and you was getting more creative, as you previously said, with it. And I assume that we can only expect more of that. But from your previous answer in terms of his striking ability, I suppose what my understanding from your answer was that depending on what he does, it allows me to do something different if he's bringing something different than I've previously seen. Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah. Okay. Everybody brings something different, and he's very different to a lot of the fight. Not because of necessarily his levels, but his experience, what he's seen and been through.
Yeah.
So him himself, because of all the fights that he's been through, all the experience he's got in his back pocket, you can see that his game's tailored to adjust. Like he's ready to adjust and alter his game, which again, at this level that I'm at now, you potentially won't get as much because the experience level is not that as high. Like me myself, I'm 7-0, but again, the amateurs added the experience for me to be able to adjust. But with him, he's had 20 plus years experience with top level fighters to then take on, and so he can adjust his game to suit any fighter, which is what makes it more exciting because it's going to be not only a game of, you know, physicality, but also a game of the mind, which for me is it's something I enjoy.
And I can tell that's something you're quite excited about because it's for you. I suppose for you, it's not just about fighting; it's about the mind behind the martial artists and what they bring to their game, and also what adds to your game for the future, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like everybody you fight, you take a bit of their power and put it in your back pocket, you know, and add it to your own arsenal. I've took a lot from my previous fights. As I always say, especially the two I had with Will Curry, I say those are definitely big boosters. Opened up a lot of insights to my own game, strengths and weaknesses, which I worked on, and I've got a couple of his moves in my back pocket as well. So nice. It's all good.
So talking on the wrestling then, like from the sort of things I hear from the public and from MMA fans and people that watch Cage Warriors and yourself specifically, haters, if you want to call them that, or people that just like to analyze and critique, there's a bit of an emphasis on your ground game and your wrestling game that we haven't seen much of. No fault of your own, because I suppose that if someone can't take you down, then it's not your fault, right? You're doing your job. But with going up against someone like Jesse and, you know, knowing he's going to be, you know, up there when it comes to wrestling and to the ground game, what do you say to that? Like, when do you think we will see, like, your level of striking but on the ground, or, you know,
when they come out, when you fully see? I believe a fight like this will potentially bring it to the forefront because of his style. Very, very wrestling, very grappling based. So if the fight's gonna head that way, it's gonna have to head that way. But yeah, again, I'm comfortable wherever the fight goes. That it's mixed martial arts, you know. It's not kickboxing, it's not boxing, it's not wrestling, it's not jiu-jitsu. It's the whole thing together. We're in 2022 now, so the fighters now need to have everything together, and I believe I'm becoming one of those fighters. Still early days for me. I got a lot of learning to still do, but yeah, I definitely fortunate enough to have had a lot of high experience in my early days as an amateur coming up, through, like I said, through traveling and through the IMAFs, through Cage Warriors scene in Wales as well. That was a big booster as well, with the guys Shaky and Jack Shaw's dad Shaky, Richard Shaw. Their show, that again, they were just throwing top level guys at me. You know, I'm fighting guys which have got 5-6+ fights in me in my second fight, and you know, I'm fighting good fighters. So yeah, I've jumped in at the deep end, but sink or swim, and so far I've been out to swim. So I'm happy now to dive back in to the deep end and enjoy this fight and see where it takes us.
So, moving on from that, then, when we talk about Jesse Taylor, we talk about someone that's got a lot of experience, and anyone that follows MMA or knows his journey knows there's been a bit of controversy when it comes to, you know, his career and even outside of that. But we won't talk about outside of that because that isn't relevant. Yeah. But what I will say to you is, you know, there's been a few times he's obviously popped when it comes to drugs. And as some people may know, may not know, Cage Warriors doesn't have a governing body that tests fighters. Is that something you're worried about?
It's not something I've even thought about, to be honest, until you brought it up yourself. I just look at his fights, how he performs in the cage. Like the outside actions is nothing to do with me. You know, I don't need to watch that. It's not gonna give me an advantage, or it's not gonna add to what I need to do in the cage. Like that's all. You know, the smoke to me don't really mean anything. But yeah, people do what they do. I'm sure probably I've been across people the same in the past, but it doesn't change anything to do with the fight or what's happening.
I know. I mean, it's not to discredit Jesse, because I still believe he's a phenomenal fighter and he's had years in the game. But I think, you know, at times people they want to heal up quicker. They want to you know, be able to perform better, and there is that temptation because, you know, you're in a tough sport, a sport that takes a lot out of you. So you need to kind of get back on the sort of the wheel to be able to perform and get back to that level. And we've seen it with TJ Dillashaw, and, you know, Cody Gambrandt's come out and said, you know, you would have never won had you not been using, etc. It's all kind of like
Tints,
yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah. So it is one of those things that, like, you like to talk about because obviously we want to highlight it, and you know, like, say to these people, like, don't do that, because obviously it does taint the sport, and we don't want it to become something where that's what MMA is known for. So we're all for, like, you know, a clean sport. Moving on from that, there's a lot of people over at MMA UK and people that I talk to on a daily basis that know that we have a relationship. And they ask me, they say, oh, when's Chris going to sign with UFC? When's UFC coming? And we know the big card in the UK is coming in March to London. I know, obviously, like you've previously said in other interviews about, like, your thoughts on if the UFC comes and what the game plan is, etc. If you get through Jesse, or when you get through Jesse, is there anything in the works that potentially UFC may be next on the cards?
I would say this fight, depending on the outcome of this fight, it heads in the right direction and opens some good doors. Some doors that lead to an exciting path. But until we get to those doors, those questions can't be answered.
Yeah.
So it's more of, we're gonna walk this path. Once we cross the threshold, you could say, and get to the door, then we'll know what's going on, and then I can share what's going on at the same time.
Fair enough. And you know, it's funny you mentioned Will Curry, and I know he's obviously cleaning up the division as well. Like, I believe he's probably struggling to get fights as well, because again, top level guy, great fighter. and I don't think there's a lot of guys that want to fight him because they know it's going to be a tough fight. And not that I was stalking his Facebook, but I was looking through. Sorry, not that I was stalking his Instagram, but I was looking through Instagram, and someone commented on one of his posts and saying, "Oh, like, how about Christian again?" And he replied saying, "UFC" or something along those lines. And obviously, I think we previously spoke about this, but if the opportunity presents in the future, maybe in the UFC one day, I think that trilogy would be, worthy of a main event, if you like.
Yeah, it would. It would. Imagine our levels when that time comes. Like, you've seen the fights beforehand, and that was early in our careers. I was my first. I was 4-0 at that point there. So yeah, it makes sense for the third one to sweep everybody's pocket at that point there. You know what I'm saying? There's no point in doing it now. Just get our experience, and then if we meet up again in the future, which if he keeps doing what he's doing, then it only makes sense to happen again. But this time, we need a nice sweetener at the same time, you know.
Yeah, and I guess like in that sense, it's like you always come across as a humble person, and you're all about the sport and developing the sport and being the best you can to represent yourself and your people around you. And I guess like you want him to be in the UFC just as much as you want to be in the UFC because you want to, push that level out of each other and gain that sort of skill set from each other, which is really nice to hear because you don't hear that about much about fighters that think that way, because obviously it is a single man or a single woman sport. There isn't a team sport.
Nah, for real.
But it's good to hear that that's your thoughts on it, because in essence it shows the kind of martial artist you are. So just finishing up, can you give us, I'm not going to say a prediction, but can you give us a bit of an insight what we're going to see and witness on New Year's Eve?
I would say from the word go, it's going to be fireworks in there.
Yeah.
And New Year's Eve fireworks, say it has to be. It goes, yeah. But I just think it's going to be a banger, man. It's going to be a hell of a fight to finish the year. And I'm looking forward to this one. I just know it's going to bring the best out of me, which all my past fights have, especially the tougher ones. And the more challenging a fight, the better I perform, the more it brings out of me. So yeah, December 31st, New Year's Eve is going to be one to remember for sure.
Is this the first time you fight now, OT?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so is another milestone for you as well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other big fights on the cards.
Yeah, there's some big fights on there so far. I know there's a light heavyweight title, and there's also, I'm not sure, I think either a feather or a lightweight. I'm not 100%. I didn't see that. Yeah. And then you got Darren Stewart as well, who's back on the card. Yeah. It'd be good to see him fight again. See him perform. And then I don't think they've completed the whole card, but from what I've seen, there's some exciting fights. Yeah. So yeah, Cage Warriors, New Year's Eve, O2 at the Indigo at the O2. Yeah, it's gonna be a banger.
All right, so there you have it. Abdulhad, MMA UK, the champ. Tune in New Year's Eve and watch a great show. Thank you, my man.